On a freezing night in February 1959, 9 young Soviet hikers disappeared in the northern Ural Mountains. Weeks later, rescuers found their tent sliced open from the inside. The hikers had fled into temperatures below -25 degrees Celsius, some barefoot, some half-dressed. What searchers found next became one of the greatest mysteries in modern history. This is a true story. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a capable engineering student known for careful planning and quiet leadership. Around him were friends who shared the same hard training: ski marches, cold camps, and long days hauling packs through snow. Most were students or recent graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. They were not reckless tourists chasing a weekend thrill. They were trained ski hikers who had planned a difficult Category 3 expedition across remote northern snow country, a rating that demanded experience and discipline. Before they vanished, they sent cheerful photographs and diary notes that showed laughter, shared meals, teamwork, and ordinary camp life. One night, they joke in the tent. The next frames show tired smiles against white slopes. Those images remain haunting because they look so ordinary, and because none of them knew they were documenting their final days. Their route bent toward Kholat Syakhl, a Mansi name often rendered in English as Mountain of the Dead. Whether that translation is exact folklore or later legend, the mountain itself is real, a treeless rise in a landscape that can erase trails in an hour. Weather worsened as they pushed north. Wind climbed. Visibility dropped until landmarks blurred into the same white wall. Maps and terrain pushed them off the line they had intended. Near dusk, they made a fateful choice. Instead of descending into the protective forest below, they pitched their tent on an open slope cut into the snow. It was a strange place to stop. The slope offered little shelter from the wind, and experienced hikers usually preferred the trees when a storm threatened. Later reconstructions suggest they may have been trying to save time or keep height for the next day's climb. Whatever the reason, that exposed camp became the center of everything that followed. Think about what that decision looked like from inside the group. Skis stacked. A snow ledge cut into the hillside. Canvas snapped against gusts while someone checked stakes and guy lines. They had done this many times before. Nothing in the surviving photographs suggests panic at dusk. That calm is important because the later flight from the tent was so complete it looks like a switch flipped. Between ordinary camping and desperate escape lies the unanswered minute, the moment the story turns. When friends reported them overdue, anxiety turned into action. A search began across country that fights every tracker. Rescuers finally found the camp partially buried in snow. Inside the tent lay boots, coats, food, and supplies, the very gear that should have kept 9 people alive through a Ural winter night. Footprints led away into the darkness, some clear enough to follow for a time before wind erased the rest. Most shocking of all, the fabric of the tent had been cut from the inside. Not unstaked. Not collapsed in a tidy fold. Cut. Whatever happened, it happened so suddenly that they abandoned the one thing that could have kept them alive. Further down the mountain, the discoveries grew stranger and sadder. Searchers found 2 hikers under a cedar tree beside the remains of a small fire. Between the tree and the tent, 3 more lay along the line of return as if they had tried to crawl back toward camp in the dark. Months later, when spring softenings allowed deeper digging, 4 others were recovered from a ravine under deep snow. Investigators recorded that several died of hypothermia. Others showed severe internal injuries that did not match simple falls on open ground. Soft tissue was missing in places, later understood largely as the work of time, weather, and scavengers rather than a cinematic monster. Clothing had been shared among the group, coats and pieces of fabric moved from the living to those still fighting the cold, a grim sign of desperate attempts to stay warm. We describe these facts carefully, without spectacle, because the mystery is cruel enough without turning tragedy into gore. In the decades since, theories multiplied to fill the silence. One serious line holds that a small slab avalanche or a sudden snow collapse against the tent made the hikers believe the slope was about to bury them. In that panic, they cut free and ran downhill toward trees and fuel, underdressed because seconds mattered more than boots. Another theory points to katabatic winds and infrasound, powerful mountain winds racing downslope that can create low-frequency vibrations linked, in some scientific discussions, to anxiety, nausea, or disorientation. A third cluster of ideas involves military activity in a closed Soviet era, secret testing, parachute mines, or force that left trauma without a clear battlefield. The story became so famous that explanations ranging from weapons tests to supernatural folklore have circulated for generations. Fame itself became part of the fog because every new documentary invited a louder answer. Balanced storytelling means holding competing ideas without surrendering to the loudest one. An avalanche explains sudden flight and underdressing. Wind and infrasound try to explain terror without a visible enemy. Military theories try to explain trauma patterns that felt, to some relatives, incompatible with a small natural slide. Each camp selects evidence. Good documentary work shows the evidence lanes and then shows what peer-reviewed modeling can test. In 2020, Russian authorities reopened the case with modern tools and concluded that a combination of a small slab avalanche, poor visibility, and extreme cold was the most likely chain of events. Later research added a sharper scientific twist. Computer models published in a Nature research journal showed that a delayed slab avalanche was physically possible on the slope where the tent stood, snow that can hang, then fail, hours after camp is set. That does not solve every contested detail, and it does not erase every alternative hypothesis. But a partial answer grounded in physics can be more honest than pretending the file is either completely closed or forever supernatural. Add the human scale once more. Names that appear in the case files include Yuri Doroshenko, Yuri Krivonishenko, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Rustam Slobodin, Ludmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, and Semyon Zolotaryov. Saying their names matters because mysteries can turn people into plot points. These were classmates and friends with families waiting for telegrams that never came. Their expedition diary breaks off into silence, and the mountain keeps the rest. When you walk through the timeline beat by beat, camp, cut fabric, footprints, cedar fire, ravine, you are not watching a Hollywood script. You are following a forensic trail left in snow that no longer exists. Modern visitors still trek toward the pass, leave remembrances, and argue in comment sections as if the night were still unfolding. That enduring attention is part of why the story holds for 10 careful minutes. Every answer invites the next question. More than 60 years later, the photographs of the smiling hikers still stop people mid-scroll. They were not careless adventurers. They were skilled young people who expected to return home with stories, grades, and another season of expeditions ahead of them. Somewhere on that frozen mountainside, something convinced all 9 of them to leave the safety of their tent and walk into the night. Whether the final answer is avalanche, wind, a cascade of both, or a sequence we still do not fully understand, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of history's most chilling true stories. What do you think happened that night?